Hey beautiful people, I'm Jennifer Kenny and today I'm here to talk about what does it mean to have good leadership skills? What does good leadership actually look like in practice? Think you're not a leader? Look at what you're already doing. You can't learn leadership from a checklist, but you can certainly learn it from a practice. Here's what leadership sounds like, looks like and acts like. At the end of the video, I want you to know and understand how leadership shows up in everyday work. I want you to recognize practices that indicate strong leadership, and I want you to see how you can use your own work environment to increase your leadership capacity. So if you're asking the question, what does it mean to have good leadership skills? I'm assuming that you're a new leader or you're not a leader yet. If you're not a leader yet, one of the most effective ways to position yourself for leadership is to be able to make offers. I talk about making offers in a number of other videos, but it is one of the most effective ways for you to put yourself on your growth edge, put yourself into the discomfort, the courageous discomfort of learning what it means to actually lead. When you're making an offer, you're doing a couple of different things that are the essence of leadership. So what you're doing is you're understanding the vision, you're understanding the values, you're understanding the metrics, you're understanding the context, and you are enrolling other people to help you. So if we look at those 5 things, understanding the vision, understanding the values, understanding the context, understanding the metrics, and enrolling others to help you deliver value, then by doing something as small as making an offer, what you're doing is you are practicing leadership, and you're practicing 5 of the absolute key skills of leadership. You're also communicating that, which would be the 6th one, you're also communicating that to the people who you are going to enroll to help you deliver on the offer. So go to some of the other videos I've done and look at where I talk about making offers and the value of making offers. It's a thread that goes through pretty much every video I've done because I've written a book on it. It's called The Innovation Mindset. And if you want to be a fantastic leader, innovation is something, your innovation capacity is something that we also want to help you grow. Lots of us have read a number of books on leadership. I'm sure you have read your fair share. And we think of leadership as maybe tips and techniques that we look to identify, that we can begin to try practicing ourselves. I have found a much more effective way of doing that. Now, I'm not recommending you don't read books. Absolutely read the books because they really help you with kind of flushing out your understanding of leadership in different contexts. But you've got something on your doorstep that's incredibly valuable for you that you can start working with immediately. So if you work in an organization, if you're not the CEO, you have a leader. And your leader is, and even if you're the CEO, you have the board. But if your leader is going to be your boss, or it's going to be your boss's boss, or it's going to be a VP who's a couple of levels above you, and that leader is the person who is holding the vision and the values and the impact that they want the organization to have. When you're listening to them, because companies are always doing company briefings, when you're listening to a leader doing a company briefing, I really encourage you to take your notebook or take your iPad or whatever, and your tablet, and jot down what you see them doing. So it's not just about you absorbing the information that they're giving you. You can watch that at a later time on a recording. Go into that meeting and start observing what are the practices that this person is displaying right now. And ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you respect and admire this person? Now, hopefully they're somewhere in the 8, 9, 10 space. And if they're in the 8, 9, 10 space, then it's worth your while identifying what is this person doing? What are their practices that they are exhibiting that I can identify, right? So that is the first thing you're doing, is you're distinguishing. So what you're going to see is you're going to see someone, they may or may not be a great presenter, but they might be a great communicator in terms of, I walk out of that meeting excited about what it was they were talking about. I walk out of that meeting wanting to contribute and wanting to be engaged and proud about what it is that the company is doing. If they're managing to create that level of commitment and passion in me, they're a really good communicator. So I'm watching that practice that they have, and I'm asking myself, how do they get to that practice? The second thing I might observe is I might observe that they are actually acknowledging other people. Now, we think of acknowledging as I go to the Oscars and I go, my mom's fabulous, thank you so much, and I want to thank everyone else who was on the set with me. There's a much more powerful way for you to think about acknowledgement, which is this person is planning, has made a commitment to me to deliver on this huge amount of work that is going to allow my vision to come to success. So it might be a VP who is introducing some of their direct reports and saying, you know, this is Mary, she's responsible for whatever piece of work it is, and I'm confident that she is going to deliver effectively on this and it's going to be successful. So what they're doing is they're acknowledging commitments other people have made to them in advance of the work being done. After the fact, acknowledging that they made commitments and delivered on them is fantastic. But a great leader will also identify the future commitments that are going to get delivered on and the promises that they already know they have that someone is going to deliver on for them. The other thing that you might observe is that you might observe that they are inviting you and other people in the room to contribute to their project. So they will talk about the growth opportunities and the growth possibilities on the project. So they're introducing a project, they're letting you know what's going on. If it's just a boring old status update and they're giving you timelines and deadlines, yeah, you probably need to know that information. But if they're really a great leader, what they're also doing is they're opening up a space of possibilities for everybody in the room. They're talking about what they're doing in the context of how others can contribute. So you can identify what leadership practices you see as valuable, and then you can begin to tailor make for yourself what are great leadership skills. You can identify great leaders, you can watch them in action in your company starting tomorrow, and you can begin to identify what are some of the practices that you want to be able to build for yourself. Now, at the same time, it's really good to be reading the books and going, here's what great leaders really do. I have good leaders and I have one or two great leaders and I have some not so great leaders around me, and the more I can observe them and the more I can see what practices they're exhibiting and the more I can identify my opportunities to be able to do those same practices myself, the better opportunity I have to grow and expand into my leadership. But rather than having someone prescribe what great leadership looks like, all they're doing is they're giving you perspectives and they're giving you ideas that you are then going to use to be able to define what leadership means for you, what it means for you to practice, what practices you want to put into place next week, where you can begin to see for yourself, this is me practicing acknowledging commitments that other people have made to me in advance of me delivering on something. So you can begin to start seeing yourself in those roles on a pretty constant basis because you're surrounded by leaders. Start observing their practices and start identifying for yourself how it is that you're going to pull those into your own repertoire of practices. As you do this, let me know what sort of practices you're pursuing down in the comments and let me see how it is that I can support you in building those. Some closing thoughts for you. You don't have good leadership, you actually practice good leadership. When you begin to practice it for yourself and you start observing it in others, you'll start recognizing what your standards are for great leadership. So what you're doing over time by observing other people's practices and beginning to practice some of them yourself is you're honing your level of discernment around what is great leadership. And I really encourage you to start just quietly, politely, without sharing with anyone else, just start ranking your leaders on a scale of 1 to 10, who exhibits great practices and is a great leader and who's not so great. And you'll start building that capacity for yourself. You also practice leadership when you make offers. As you build your capacity to be able to make offers, recognize that what you're doing is you're also building your leadership capacity. When you don't always need to be right, when you can pause and ask what would be more effective here, you're also exhibiting great leadership. When you start observing the leaders around you, you also have to ask yourself, oh, they did that in this particular case, what would have been more effective for them to do? So you start now building for yourself a little bit of a gap between what you see people doing around you and what you really consider to be great leadership. If you can step into that gap, you will build yourself and your capacity as a leader. As you do that, I've got another video that you should definitely check out, which is called What Are Several Ways to Develop Leadership Skills? I hope you enjoy it and I wish you the best of luck with your leadership development. Take care and good luck.